I'm April from Sub 88.3 FM and I'm about to interview Brian Auger. So, what inspired you to start jazz music, playing jazz music?
Well, I had an elder brother who was about 14 years older than me. My family comes from a family of 6. And we had the first batch, which was my eldest brother and 2 sisters, and then there was a kind of hiatus in between, and then I arrived, and my sister Jean and a younger brother. So by the time I got into playing the piano and messing around with the player piano and everything, I was listening to all his jazz collection, basically, which was people like Duke Ellington and Count Basie and Lionel Hampton and George Shearing and Benny Goodman. I mean, he had all the stuff. It was amazing.
So
you know.
Were your parents musicians as well?
No, they weren't. It was funny. My dad wasn't a musician, but he was interested in music, and he had this player piano with piano rolls, which was the early. I don't know what you'd call it, but anyway, we had all the operas. It's phenomenal in kind of just piano form. A lot of stuff like St. Debussy. We had Mozart. We had Beethoven. We had a lot of light stuff. We had ragtime. So I was like, Scott Joplin and stuff, and I used to play this all the time because at that particular time there was no television network. We heard stuff on the radio. Yeah. So this was my thing. I'd go home and sit these pedals away and play all this music, and the notes would play, and then I figured out a way to actually play along with these things. So I still remember probably about the first 20 bars or so of the Moonlight Sonata, just from looking at the notes. And so there was that, and then hearing all this jazz stuff, and it kind of got into my head. That was the one I really went for, after a while, I heard my older brother, he had this huge radio about this big, with a great big knob on and a big V, like orange notch in it, And he says, I'm going to get a modern radio, which turned out to be some little thing about this big, And he said, you can have this. So I thought, whoa, look at this. So I installed it next to my bed, and I ran an aerial out of the back of an antenna, just a long length of wire out of the window hanging down. And when my mum and dad would go to sleep, they were in a bedroom that was pretty near where I was. So I had to be really careful. So I would, about 1 o'clock in the morning, I'd be dialing in around here, and all of a sudden one evening I hear, this is the American Forces Network in Germany. We present the Jazz Hour. Oh my God! So there were all these, they just played all the latest kind of jazz records that had been introduced. I was just like, whoa, And I heard one of my great influences, an early influence, Oscar Peterson, playing the first piano things, Tremendous swing, phenomenal technique. This guy had been trained as a concert pianist, was I think it was from Canada. But he was from the black community in Canada, so they didn't usually make it into the orchestras. But this guy could play anything; it was ridiculous, So when I heard that, oh my God, I can't think I could ever play like that. I've got to try, Yeah. So these are the things that really inspire you to try and work stuff out. And I ended up getting along in that and playing in like jazz groups at school and forming a trio or a quartet or something like that, and then going out and playing in the pubs in England where there was a lot of music going on, and that kind of, I was doing a day job as well, so after a while I couldn't really do the day job properly or play properly, so I decided that I really should kind of step off, and and at the time my mother was like, what? Give up that, there's no security in that, Now there's no security in anything anyway. So, and after 2 years of scraping along and just about kind of getting by, I actually won the piano jazz poll in the Melody Maker in London. And that kind of got me moving forward a bit. And I got into, founded a band called the Steam Packet with Long John Baldry. We drafted in an unknown Rod Stewart and Julie Driscoll. Then I started with Trinity, which Julie came over, and this was I was trying to bridge the gap between the separate scenes of rock and jazz with that, And after a while, that connected, particularly with the French. When we went to France, they have an amazing tradition of jazz, you know, and jazz artists, and they were very open to everything. And they heard heard us play, and they all went, oh, "This is a new type of music," you know. So great, you know. And then because of that, the word got back to the BBC in London, and all of a sudden they went, "Would you like to come to BBC Two, the arts program?" And so we said, "Well, yeah, anything, you know." And so gradually the thing kind of launched itself, and here we are all these years later, kind of still playing this mix of everything, and you know, have a lot of fans all around the world.
I love acid jazz.
Yeah.
Could you describe to me what acid jazz?
Well, acid jazz. In the 90s in England, all of a sudden this term acid jazz came out. Where it came from was there were these house parties where kids would indulge in, you know, lysergic acid, I suppose, LSD, or whatever it was, and they would have these raves. They'd actually find a warehouse and hire the warehouse and throw these huge parties. And the deal was that it was a dance party. So they were also listening to, they all got fed up with a lot of the synthesizer stuff and the pop stuff. They were looking for tracks where you had real instruments playing. Unfortunately for me, they all went crazy about the Hammond and the Fender Rhodes.
Yeah.
And anything from that era, you know, it could be jazz, it could be Lee Morgan's Sidewinder, you know, and some of the stuff they were playing were Listen Here from one of my albums, Indian Rope Man, a lot of stuff from the Closer to It album. And in fact, there was an acid jazz label that was founded, and that became very, you know, that had all sorts of really amazing bands on. The guy, when I met the guy who founded the label, he said, "You know, I took your album Closer to It, and that was the template for acid jazz." I said, "Wow." So, and then this term came up in the press. There, it was from the young English bands, where they started to say, "Well, he's the godfather of acid jazz," you know. And somebody sends me this, and I look at it and I go, "What the hell is all this about?" You know. But then when I realised what they were saying, I was very flattered, you know, that they would enjoy the music enough to, you know.
So you went to vocals on your last album, Closer to It. The first time on vocals, was it?
That was me singing on there, you know. I only sing in emergencies, actually. And it was because we had a phenomenal singer, Alex Lidgerwood, and Alex went on to Santana, you know, later on.
Yeah.
But he was having some domestic problems. His wife was from Paris, and she was terribly homesick, and I don't blame her, actually, you know. And so eventually he said, "I'm sorry, Auger, I'm just going to have to go back," and, you know. And he had a little daughter as well, and I said, "Well, that's a great shame, but there you go." And so I had to make another 2 albums. I had to make 2 albums a year for RCA, you know, so I was like, wow, I've got to get on with it. And so I did that one, and I thought, well, I suppose I'd better sing. I mean, I can't find a better singer than Alex, so, you know. And the funny thing was that and Straight Ahead were the biggest selling albums I actually had, you know, which is pretty silly when you think about it all, but anyway, that's the way it worked out.